I would like to now invite Professor Ranjit Singh Sokhi onto the stage.
Good evening, everyone. Can I ask how much time do we have?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Because we might have already finished. Okay. Can I start by, first of all, thanking the organizers and my dear brothers for asking me to be in the presence of our dearest younger brother, guru, spiritual light. For me, younger brother, spiritual light in many ways. And he is a true inspiration to us. So can we give Pandit Yogesh Samsi a huge round of applause once more, please? It's okay, I'll be very, very careful. So it's a great privilege for me to be at the stage of such a wonderful master, and thank you also to Ustad Surjit Singh ji. One thing I think hasn't been said is that this is an inaugural performance for a wonderful new organization that has emerged. And the organization is Sadhana Arts, and I think we all together we agree that this was an absolutely amazing beginning to what is going to be a huge tradition that's beginning in this country. So what a wonderful way of starting this organization, and all the founders, Tony, Minta, all our Guru Bhais are sitting in front, and they've all been inspired by Yogesh Bhai here in order to start this organization. And I think this is something that is the stamp and the legacy that we will all work towards to make such an organization successful. And all this is because of Yogesh Bhai. So I've been asked to not to interview Yogesh Bhai,
If you say so.
because he always has a job and a place in our hearts forever. So that is something that we all know. But I thought what we could do, and when I discussed it with Yogesh Bhai, he said, you know, we know each other, and let's start with whatever comes up on the stage. So I thought what we could begin with, Yogesh Bhai, is for us, and you've already mentioned this with your parents as being your inspiring guides at the beginning. Maybe you could give an idea to all of us, especially for people who haven't heard you, haven't had the chance to talk to you, is at your very early age, when you started becoming introduced to music, what was the mahal like in the home? What was the atmosphere like, being in the home of such great artists as your parents?
Well, I must start from when I was born in Delhi. My father was the assistant producer of music at the All India Radio's Central Music Unit. That was his job. But since he did a job all day, he wanted not to sacrifice on his riyaz, on his practice. So I have vivid memories of, we had just a 2-room house, and therefore, because of space crunch, he used to start his practice where I was sleeping. So I used to lie there, and at 4 o'clock in the morning, I remember that the Tanpura started. And I was just 3.5, 4 years old. And it was extremely painful in the beginning because I had no idea of where my life was going to go and what this drone instrument was going to do to me later on. But at that particular time, it was incredibly disturbing. But, as they say, destiny is written. I was destined to listen to some serious Indian classical rag music first thing in the morning, my father's riyaz. And those were the first sounds of Indian classical music, rag sangeet that I heard. I also have memories of my mother, who was a phenomenal vocalist as well. She sacrificed her entire career for all of us, my brother, my sister, and myself. And the reason that I am on the stage here is because she has a major, major contribution in that, probably the most, the biggest. So, Srimati Shashikala Kaikini, my mother, she would teach students khayal music, and because I wouldn't leave her and be alone, she would put me on her lap like this, and and she would teach the student, and she would play ek tal, tilwada, jhumra, all with her hand on the dagga only. It was an old tradition of when vocalists in those times taught vocal music, khayal music. There was no tabla player to provide accompaniment, so the teacher would play the theka on the dagga. Dhin, suggestive, dhin, dha, ge, te, ra, ke, ta, tin. Theka is going on, and she was singing the khayal with the theka. And I have memories of lying down and looking at the dagga, you know. And I think the first sounds of tabla began to sink in from there. And before I knew it, I don't have memories, but my father regrets it that he didn't have a video camera or any equipment or any electronic uh, equipment to document this. That one day, suddenly, I said that I want to play tabla with my mother, and when she was practicing, and I started playing ek tal and jhumra just like that. But I don't have any memory of this, so I have to believe my father. So he realized that the bug had already entered my system, and so he started giving me lessons in tabla because he had learned tabla himself. He was also a Gandabandh disciple, a ceremonious Gandabandhan ceremony that happens when you become a disciple. He was also a Gandabandh disciple of Pandit Birju Maharaj's father, Achan Maharaj, Pandit Achan Maharaj. And he had learnt a lot of Kathak repertoire from him when my father studied in Lucknow. So my father came from a prolific Indian classical vocal tradition. He was an incredibly knowledgeable man, but at the same time, he was from his interior. He was like a saint, not really worried about what's going on in the world here and there. But he used to be, completely immersed in his music and his creativity. So, in an atmosphere like that, to be brought up in an atmosphere like that was, I must say, a blessing.
A natural way of being introduced to something that ignites in all of us, and yet it's something that we try and aspire to. And one theme that we discussed is the whole theme of inspiration. What inspires us to begin something in life, and who's the guiding light? And obviously, we are all very grateful that you are in our lives. But at that young age, as you were growing up, and tabla obviously was being immersed, it was already embedded inside. What kind of inspirations do you think as a child were you being exposed to that led you to this journey of being and deciding that this is the life I want and to dedicate myself to tabla?
Well, as I said, because my father was in a very senior post in All India Radio. Not only that, he was already an established vocalist. So he not only handled about 1,000 or 2,000 musicians in All India Radio, in the central music, in the recording scene and all those things, but he also took me to concerts where Ustad Vilayat Khan Sahab, Ustad Alla Rakha Khan Sahab performed. Great vocalists of the Agra tradition, Ustad Sharafat Hussain Khan. Mehboob Bhai is here from that family. He's the grandson of Ustad Vilayat Hussain Khan, one of the greatest legendary composers of the 20th century. of the Agra style of vocal music. And so when we moved to Bombay, my father left the All India Radio and he joined the Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan as the principal in Bombay. We moved there in 1972, just as the India Indo-Pak war was getting over. I remember that because I was terrified. Um, we had to close windows at night and so on and so forth. But anyway, uh, those are memories that I carry along with the moving to Bombay. And uh, it so happened that near my house, where I live, Ustad Vilayat Khan Saab's family used to live very close by. Mehboob Bhai's family, very close, just walking distance. And Ustad Latafat Hussain Khan, Ustad Khadim Hussain Khan, from that tradition, the next in line, great vocalists of the Agra tradition, they visited my father so many times. And Ustad Raees Khan Saab, the legendary sitar maestro, he used to also live in that vicinity. He used to visit my house. So the likes of, the caliber of musicians that visited my house, including Ustad Allah Rakha Khan Sahab. Because my father then, after noticing that, noticing my talent and my inclination towards the art of tabla, he requested Ustad Alla Rakha Khan Sahab to come and listen to me. And he very kindly offered to come along with my elder Guru Bhai and Guru, Ustad Zakir Bhai, Ustad Zakir Hussain. They both came, they listened to me, and that's when he agreed to teach me. So, fortunately, where I lived in Bombay, in South Bombay, it was like a hub of music. It was like a boiler where, a pot boiling, where vocal music was boiling on the other one side, percussion was boiling on another side, dance maestros were doing their creativity just in the neighborhood. Pandit Achan Maharaj ji used to come, Birju Maharaj ji's father, he used to come at 5 a.m. to my house. This is when I wasn't born. He came to my house to teach my aunt at 5 a.m. in the morning. That's when he used to start teaching. So musicians like these who had completely dedicated their lives to music and didn't know what was in store in the next day. They lived their lives like that. I saw those people. I was fortunate to see those people completely immersed in music and they didn't know about anything else in life. So that basically inspired me. One of them was Ustad Allah Rakha Khan Sahab.
I think it's worthwhile for everyone to appreciate how Ustad Alla Rakha Khan Sahib used to impart his knowledge. And I had the privilege, because of you, to go and visit the garage where this taaleem used to be imparted to the students, and the conditions. If you could give some insight to people that how this was being done and how you learned.
Well, as I said, he was a massive storehouse of creativity, a powerhouse of creativity. Then revealed himself in front of us as a huge institution itself. But the institution started below his house in a small garage where his car was supposed to be parked, but he removed his car from there and he converted that into a room where he would teach all of us. And, he liked to be in his own zone. He didn't like to teach inside the house because his house was also a house of a musician where the door was never locked and anybody could enter at any time and everyone was welcome. So Shivji, Pandit Shivkumar Sharma, Pandit Hariprasad, Chaurasia, musicians like these, they just walked in at free will and came and sat there and to just meet Abbaji, and then suddenly after some time I noticed that there's a small mehfil happening there, So things like that. So he moved to the garage downstairs and there was no fan uh, because there was simply no electricity connection there. And the temperature was about 38 or 40. In sweltering heat, and humidity was 90%. So I remember, now when I think about it, when we are living in an age of incredible luxury and comfort, I don't know how I did it, but it just happened. But yeah, I think that was the real test. That itself was an inspiration for me. That Abbaji, as he was fondly, affectionately known, surroundings didn't affect him at all. Once he started teaching and started counting, he used to forget what the temperature is, who's around, what's happening. And so if Talim began, it could go anywhere between 2 to 6 hours.
I will ask if you have your own questions here, please raise your hand and think of some questions.
Tarsem Singh ji is here. He's witness to all that. We learned together, and whenever he, you know, I mean, we all have experienced Talim with Ustad Alla Rakha Khan Sahab with a lot of affection, love, and blessing, but we've also seen the iron hand. So, so whenever he used the iron hand, he would come and running to me, and I would sort his queries out. So, you know, but as I said, those were golden times. It was a golden period of my life, an unforgettable experience. And I must say that he's not amongst us today, as great musicians pass on, but they live in the atmosphere. They are alive. Their music is alive. And when I perform, I can feel that.
While you are thinking of your questions, the question I think logically follows is the inspiration. Yes, we know, and your music itself shines because of your guru. As you were developing your own musicality and talim under the guidance of Ustad Alla Rakha Khan Sahib, I remember once you were speaking to me, maybe about 2 o'clock in the morning, about
I don't remember.
about how Ustadji used to use lagus. And I remember you used a phrase that Ustadji said, "Main page kaat raha hoon." Can you say a little bit about that? Because
No, this was an incident that happened. You see, Ustad Alla Rakha Khan Sahab studied in Lahore with Mia Kader Bakhsh Khan Sahab. And then he moved to Delhi and then eventually moved to Bombay and settled down in Bombay. At that time, it was, I must say, a pretty challenging period for him. Huge challenge, because when he moved to Bombay, Ustad Amir Hussain Khan Sahab, Ustad Game Khan Sahab, Ustad Inam Ali Khan Sahab of the Delhi Farrukhabad style, Ustad Azim Khan Sahab, Nizamuddin Khan Sahab's father, great, huge pillars of knowledge and the art of tabla were already around there, and their tabla had already percolated in the psyche of the common music enthusiast and enthusiasts of tabla. So at that time, for him to come and start, trying to make his point was a huge challenge. It was a massive challenge. And he did face a pretty hard time when, I don't mean to say that he was discouraged or anything like that, but it's just that when a certain philosophy is prevailing, to come with your own thought process and try and get acceptance for that doesn't become very easy. So it was just one of those things. And so, sorry, what was your question?
I was really asking about that incident when you were sharing that with me about
so,
lagus.
When his performances happened, initially there were not many people, but slowly, gradually, there began to, he started attracting a significant number of enthusiasts. And one of them, who is present today, Pandit Sudhir Mainkarji, who has written a wonderful, one of the finest books on the aesthetics of tabla. He narrated this story to me. So and he was a disciple of Ustad Inam Khan Sahab of the Delhi Gharana. So whenever these disciples who were attracted to Abbaji's playing, whenever they wanted to listen to Abbaji, they used to hide from their ustads and attend Ustad Alla Rakha Khan Sahab's performance, because they didn't want their ustad to feel that, I'm going there to listen to Ustad Alla Rakha Khan Sahab. So it was one of those situations in those days. So Abbaji's Peshkar and the way he used to look at the microbeat values of a matra or microbeat values inside a tal were very unique, and that was his style. And he used to think very intricately on that point. And so when he was playing Peshkar, because he wanted to explore it in a new sound, in a new manner. So Pandit Sudhir Mainkarji asked him, Abbaj Khan Sahab, what is this style of Peshkar? How do you perceive it? So he said in one line, he said, Beta, पेशकार का मतलब ये है पेंच काटना होता है, which means you have to not only look at the macro aspect of a tal, you must slice it and dissect it and analyze it and see the inner lying beauty of even one matra. So I think that's what he meant. So this was told to me by Sudhir Mainkarji.
Thank you. Let's pass it on to the audience. I have lots of questions yet, but who's going to begin? Majid, would you like to... and raise your hands as well.
Bernard Schimpelsberger, let's get his name right.
If you begin and then we'll come
Bernard will come to you. Just a second. But I have a quick question for you. Yogeshji, can you please just explain what are the qualities that are needed for a student to approach a guru and to learn effectively and imbibe those qualities that a guru has for a student, and how should his learning begin? What should be the thought process behind that approach to the guru?
It's a very simple answer. You just need two things. One is complete dedication. And the most important thing after that is the will to surrender completely. That's it. And only then will the Guru's grace descend upon you. Otherwise, if there are any obstacles inside your mind, your conscience, your heart, then it just doesn't happen, because your wavelength to be in tune with your Guru itself takes my experience with Ustad Alla Rakha Khan Sahab. In those days, like today, when I start teaching someone, they already have 1,000 questions lined up. And I haven't even begun teaching them. In those days, we were not allowed to ask any question. And that is what I experienced with him. The meaning of complete surrender means just shut your mouth and follow his instructions. And after 12 years, all your questions will be answered. So I had so many questions, honestly. Sometimes I used to go crazy with that energy inside me to, somehow go and ask him this question: should I, or am I going to be smashed? What will happen if I ask him a question, and so on and so forth. But then I used to keep my patience, and within 2-3 years, through his talim, I used to get the answer. So this was the old system. I'm not saying that that system of learning is the only way to do it, but I can tell you that that is how I learned to completely surrender myself, because I decided never to ask him any questions. Till such time when he said, अरे तू मुझे सवाल क्यों नहीं पूछता? You just play and do everything that I tell you. Why don't you ask me a question? Oh, that's when I asked him a question. That was after 20 years. So, just those two things.
Thank you.
There's a question there, Bert.
Yeah, but this.
Here we are asking you questions.
This is my interview.
Thank you, Yogesh Dada, for this amazing performance. So inspiring always to hear you and to hear you play, but also to hear you talk. And when you speak and when you play, it's the same thing. It's so true.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to ask you a question about talim,
Yeah.
for example, because in your style you've always stayed very true to your roots, and you've always gone that very direct way, and you've spoken about talim and about the atmosphere of learning and about the different generations of artists as well who didn't need to know or who didn't want to know what was going on in the world.
Yeah.
They were so focused. Now, and you spoke about the 6 Gharanas and so on, and now Tabla is changing so much with YouTube, with the internet, with the questions of students, people wanting to get something from you immediately before dedicating sometimes and so on, and mixing Gharanas. So my question would be, what's your perspective on learning today on this aspect of talim and sadhana? How does it happen in India? Has it changed for you?
For me, it hasn't changed. But for my students, many of them all of them are professional tabla players, but 3, 4, 5 of them are really, really good. They're really doing well with Abbaji's blessings. My approach to giving them talim is not very different from what I received from Abbaji. And yes, there are challenges in terms of just the world being very noisy and technologically advanced. So what has happened is that technological advancement has created a lot of noise around. So could be anything. I mean, just this thing here has destroyed the life of a normal human being to a large extent. I'm sure you all agree with me. So there are influences, there are good influences and there are bad influences. I wouldn't like to use good and bad. I normally don't, because I like to live in the realm of beyond good and bad. But when I'm teaching a student, up to a certain point, I have to tell him what is good and what is bad. After that, he can move on to the realm of beyond good and bad. But till he reaches that maturity, I will tell him to do certain things and I will tell him not to do certain things, do's and don'ts. So it is very tough and challenging for a student today to do very hard riyaz like we did. Primarily because we didn't have any distractions in life. I don't even know how I passed my exams and got a big Bachelor's of Commerce degree. I don't know. I'm lucky, I must say. It just happened because all my focus and time went in pleasing my guru. I wanted to please him every day. I wanted to do better than I did today, tomorrow. That was the philosophy with which we were driven. And that philosophy is quite lacking today in the young generation. When I'm teaching, they learn, they do well in front of me. But when they go back to their world, whatever it is, as we say, sansar, Maya Jal of sansar, the big, incredible web that sansar weaves around you. It completely engulfs you. But that is the challenge. That is what sadhana is all about. Sadhana is to conquer that state. You have to conquer that state and still be in tune with that energy and that force from where you have drawn that inspiration, strength and learning. And that is the energy that is given to you by the Guru and the Gurus of the past. And that is what we call in India as Guru Shakti. Nothing is more powerful than the Guru Shakti. It's the most powerful thing that you can experience in your life, that I have experienced in my life through being connected with great masters and also 24 years with Ustad Alla Rakha Khan Sahab. So, if you are connected and in tune with that Guru Shakti, no amount of sansaric, worldly matters can deter you from achieving your goal. This is what I teach my students, and I have to actually make an effort to drill this in because it came to us very naturally. Because, as I said, we are products of the iron hand, the hathoda. We have been chiseled by the hathoda. Today, if I try to chisel with the hathoda, he will collapse. I can't do that. I have to use different technology to chisel his brain, to chisel his conscience, to chisel his interior. So it's a challenge for me, it's a challenge for him, my student. But yes, I keep them away from Facebook, WhatsApp. I try to, because for a sadhak, for somebody, for something like this, an art form like this, or for that matter, painting, dance, if you really want to dwell in deep into the depths of it and achieve something substantial, then you can't afford to be connected with the whole world on your palm. It's a sheer waste of time. There's too much happening around the world, and you don't have to have it in your palm. Till you have reached a point where you can actually maturely handle the magnitude of all that. So till then I don't allow. I keep them away. So things like, I teach them, they get excited, they like it, they play well, and then I say, "Achhi baat hai, good, you're doing fine." Then he goes home and he starts playing that, and then he takes a video and he puts it on Facebook. And then he expects thumbs ups from everybody all around the world. What is this? So, if I had done this, if Ustad Allah Rakha Khan Sahab was alive today, I would have been hammered to pulp if I had done that. Ustad Allah Rakha Khan Sahab never told me, "Wah, kya acha bajaya." Never. He always said, "Theek hai, jeete raho." Theek hai means you are doing all right, but you can do better. He always told me that Vidya, knowledge, is always greater and bigger, and the magnitude of it, the depth of it, is always bigger than the artist. The artist can never be bigger than the knowledge. कलाकार बड़ा नहीं होता है, विद्या बड़ी है, इल्म बड़ा है. So these are the things that we grew up with. And so he said we are always climbing the mountain of knowledge. And he told me, when you climb a mountain, do you ever look down? You will feel dizzy. Always look up and admire the magnitude, surrender and keep climbing. Only then you may reach the peak in this lifetime. But never look down. If you look down upon knowledge, you will start feeling dizzy. And before you know it, everything will vanish from here. So he says, and that's why I've told Ranjit bhai so many times, I don't like to be referred as Pandit. I know I've lost a lot of hair, but that doesn't qualify me to be in the zone of being called Pandit, because Pandit is, to just tell you, share it with you. Actually, Pandit means someone who is traditionally, someone who is very, very knowledgeable, and someone who knows the scriptures, the Vedas, Upanishads, and therefore Sanskrit language like the back of his hand. That person is a Pandit, actually. But now it has been borrowed and it's part of the Oxford Dictionary. So Pandit is used in all fields. So I don't like to be called a Pandit, because the people whom I have seen from childhood, I feel ashamed to be called a Pandit because I have seen some huge pillars, and you know, I've been brought up. It was like being brought up amongst mountains. If any of you were brought up next to the Himalayas, how would you feel? Like that. Such towering personalities. They were Pandits. They were entitled to have get that title, and not people like us. But yes, I know everyone likes to show their respect, admiration, love, affection, and so they address people like us as Pandit ji, but I'm not a Pandit ji. I always stick to what Ustad Allah Rakha Khan Sahab told me, is that be a good student all your life and you will get by.
Do we have any? Another question from the audience. Yes? Yeah, of course. Yeah, please.
Please excuse me for asking this. You've just answered it, but you mentioned some time back
If I've
the
answered
title.
it, don't ask.
But I feel it's just one question leading on from what you've just said. The title Ustad and Pandit, how was that officially? Was that officially given, or how are people crowned?
You see, I'll tell you exactly what happened, what may have happened. I'm not a historian, and I haven't seen any historic evidence to this. But when our music was in the courts of the Maharajas, at that time, they were the biggest patrons of our art form. And all the great masters, phenomenal, great people who contributed in various aspects of Indian classical music, they performed in the courts for the Maharajas. And in those days, they used to adorn certain artists' performances when it was incredibly overwhelming for the audiences and then the people sitting on the darbar. The Maharaja used to adorn or offer various titles. One of them is there is historic evidence to this. The great Ustad Vilayat Khan Sahab of the Agra Gharana was adorned with Aftab-e-Mausiki. So he was known as Aftab-e-Mausiki Ustad Vilayat Khan Sahab. So when you adorn somebody or give a title like this, Aftab-e-Mausiki Vilayat Khan Sahab, ऐसे कहने के बजाय आफ्ताब-ए-मौसीकी उस्ताद फैयाज खान साहब है, तो that became probably a way of addressing someone who had reached that level of performance or level of realization in their art form. So this probably happened in the courts of the Maharajas. And then after it came out of the courts of the Maharajas, and then when private patrons started supporting, of course, then everyone wanted to be associated with that title. So after that, there is no saying, there was no official ceremony or anything like that. So it just became a norm that post 40 you become a Pandit. Or an Ustad.
Well, forgive me, Panditji has been on the stage now
Again,
for 2 hours, for more than 2 hours probably. I wanted to conclude. Do you wish me to conclude now?
Please feel free. This is like your home.
Thank you, and we should give a huge round of applause to the organisers of this venue. This is amazing. Thank you.
Bilkul, this is a very homely atmosphere. Let's have dinner.
As a concluding question, Yogesh Bhai, people have got a glimpse of your artistry in music today, and all the other concerts that we've been privileged to be present at. But when you are not playing tabla, what inspires you? What are the other things in your life that are important to you, apart from your family, apart from music, that you enjoy doing?
Oh, even my family inspires me. My younger son inspires me. He makes me rack my brains so much that I have to find ways and means of, trying to invent teaching methods. So I take it as an inspiration. Other than that, I like to listen to all kinds of music, right from jazz, rock, pop, new age music. I like to listen to all kinds of music. I listen to it. What I take from it and what I don't take from it is my personal choice. But I do listen to everything. I like to listen to all kinds of music. And I like to play chess. So I have chess on I use my mobile to do things like this. So I play chess and I ask the computer to challenge me. And it makes me think of strategies. And I relate that to, I have developed a relationship with chess and music also. Makes me think about strategies, about planning certain things, planning movements, and so on and so forth. And I like to sit with a very select group of friends who are great intellectuals, maybe in music, maybe in philosophy, and sports.
Cricket.
Cricket. I used to play cricket until I was in university. So I love watching cricket. I love playing cricket, but unfortunately that hasn't happened after 2007. That was the last time I played in England. It wasn't a test match.
We'll have to arrange another one.
And I remember playing with none other than Ustad Shahid Parvez. He was batting and I was bowling. So I like to do things like that. I like to go cycling early in the morning for 10-15 kilometers along the sea in Bombay, early morning. It's a beautiful inspiration. So I try to draw inspiration from all these things.
There is so much more to Panditji that we haven't explored. We could spend hours, days, and weeks and months and years, and we wouldn't get even below the surface. And we know this through our own experience. Yes, guys? Everyone who has had the privilege of spending time with Panditji knows this. And we are so grateful to Panditji for sharing some of his thinking, thoughts, feelings and emotions of how he has developed into such a wonderful musician, a human being, a guiding light for all of us. So thank you, and thank you to everyone for coming.
Thank you, Rahmat Bhai, again.
Thank you to Rahmat Bhai.
I must say,
to all your team at this music room, to the Sadhana Arts.
I would also like to thank my student Amritpal Singh, his brother Manjeet Singh Rasia, another student of mine from Leicester, Binderjeet Singh. They are all part, Jasdev Singh, they are all part of the new organization. And I'm happy that, as they say, the kickstart to this organization happened today in this wonderful, unique chamber. And all of you great musicians from London have made it a wonderful evening. I thank you all for being here today. Thanks.
Thank you to Panditji again, and to Ustad Surjit Singh.
It has been an absolute honor.
My pleasure.
Pleasure to have you here with us this evening. I thank Manjeet Bhai Amritpalji, and my newfound friend, Professor Ranjit ji. It's an absolute honor. And it has been an absolute pleasure having you all here this evening. Manjit Bhai wants to say something. No, please, it's okay.
I'd just like to thank everyone on behalf of the music room and also the Sadhana team and the brains behind it. Pandit Amritpal Singh. Sorry. Before you go, I'd like to thank the daughter of Murari Bapuji, who's also come and graced the occasion. So thank you very much for coming. And also I'd like to thank my friend, which I forgot earlier on, Ravin. He's a very dear friend of mine, an extremely talented actor. I'd like to thank him, and also thank you everybody here who's actually made this journey to experience what we have been going through for the last 10 years with Yogesh Bhai. So thank you so much from the bottom of our hearts. We are very, very honored. Thank you, Hanif Bhai, for coming as well.